the Cockaffair chair work. And most importantly, though, I think you would have to agree, the word worker, as she called herself in her email and her business, always had the right words for us. Words of love and support and comfort and heart and humor. And whatever challenges you in this room have faced, and I'm guessing we have a rather large laundry list of illness or grief or broken bones or caregiving pressures, and okay, yes, that was just me, not you, but I'm guessing you've had some issues too. I have no doubt that Mary Ellen accompanied you in word and deed. She was there. She was there with the Andres, of course. She favored the dusted almonds. For a small crisis, you'd need something like a Matterhorn if something was really going wrong in your life. And of course, her favorite, the Napoleon, for really, really big problems. She was there with the trip to the doctor. She was there with the encouraging Zoom call. She was there with the stack of fun reading to distract you and the shoulder to cry on, too. But you never forgot the words that made it all, just a little bit better, a little bit easier, made you maybe even laugh. Her last letter to me ran true to form, sharp and witty, and she could not resist adding every little joke and everything she could think of, and making a little bit of a laundry list, too, in all the things that might prevent me from being here today and fulfilling my promise, including, she had to list, visiting prisoners on death row, which I've totally put off for the day, and washing the bodies of lepers. And I don't know where she gets this stuff, because I don't do that on Saturdays, ever. That is a Tuesday thing. I have been thinking so much about the writers that Mary Ellen loved. She loved, Jane Austen and Anthony Trollope and E.F. Benson and P.G. Wodehouse. Each of those beloved writers surrounds you not just with a compelling story, but with great characters. They are quirky and funny and smart and innocent and bold and inspiring and oblivious, sometimes a little vain or dizzy. But you found an affection for them. And soon you realized that you just couldn't quite live without them, and they became a second family. And that was the golden age of the Nelson, around the storied table in Roselle Court. A wonderful tale with the greatest characters you could ever hope to meet. The Titanic churchmans, of course, and Boots and Joanne and Dee Dee and Ellen and Margaret and Gina and Dawn and Judith and Michael, Mary Ellen at the center. She loved her friends and celebrated and affirmed our gifts and our quirks and basically what made us us. I think in many ways she lived a quote of one of her favorite authors, Jane Austen, in Northanger Abbey, who writes, "There is nothing I would not do for those who are really my friends. I have no notion of loving people by halves. It is not my nature." She adored the telling little detail that revealed so much about us, and with your permission, I'll tell two of her very favorites. These little mini vignettes really illuminated character of her beloved dear friends. She loved to relate the story, this is quite a few years ago, of a party that was in honor of the opening of the museum's renovated conservation studio. And some of you may recall this. Staff was invited to go to the party and enter through a little hatch that took you out into the roof. These were obviously days before things like risk management. But obviously, who does this? Who does this? We all went up to the roof. We relished the view and stayed far, far away from the edges. I was just clinging to the center. One person, though, boldly climbed atop one of the clear domes over Roselle Court with a fearlessness and a joy and a sense of adventure, laying claim to all she surveyed. Mary Ellen loved that image and couldn't resist adding to it. She said she imagined the couple down in Roselle Court, mid-chicken salad, looking up The husband saying to the wife, "Honey, isn't that Boots lighter?" The wife, with some impatience, saying, "Well, of course it is." That, again, beloved Boots. And you remember, you did it. No one else had the courage to climb atop the roof. And a second, one of her very favorite little vignettes of a dear, dear friend from Friends of Art days, her buddy, Betty Wilkin. Betty Wilkin, some of you may remember. The way Mary Ellen describes Betty, a person of such goodness and kindness and innocence that, as Mary Ellen said, Betty could not think ill of others, even if perhaps that was evidence might suggest something else. She said one day in the office, another colleague in development sidled up to Betty and suggested that a particular administrator might have a kind of an attraction for a certain type of woman. The colleague then, with rolling eyes and raised brows, added a bit of mime to make it clear. They said to Betty, "You know, he really goes for women with..." Betty said immediately and without hesitation, "Arthritis?" And to the end of her days, Mary Ellen would always say a well-endowed woman was a woman with arthritis. And of course, Mary Ellen would have loved nothing more than the planning of this service and seeing her beloved family and friends crafting their messages. Her dear, dear beloved spouse, Jean, and I had many chats, many phone calls. And when the subject of music came up, I thought, well, what are we going to do? Is this a Chopin? Is this a Schubert? What is this? And Jean said, no. Mary Ellen, he said, loved, and I knew this in the back of my head, musicals. He said, Fred Astaire, Gene Kelly, Swing Time and Top Hat, Gay Divorcee, Berlin, and Gershwin. Gene said, I know exactly what we need to do. I have it. I said, what is it? And he started singing to me a very beautiful rendition of the song from An American in Paris, I'll Build a Stairway to Paradise with a new step every day. And I smiled and I thought, I asked Jean if maybe there wasn't the tiniest bit of irony in a non-observant Unitarian, and that is redundant, making that selection. Mary Ellen would have just exploded with laughter. She would have loved every minute of that. Mary Ellen loved and accepted us with all our quirks and eccentricities and innocence and experience and folly and frailties, and we loved her. The golden age of the Nelson was truly a world apart, and one that I think my current museum family at the Johnson Museum, as much as I adore them, could not simply imagine the way we were. It was a world not of e-cards or virtual greetings for birthdays and retirements, if we're lucky to get an e-card now, frankly, but it was an era in which we spent not days, but weeks, sometimes months, planning and plotting and scheming to celebrate each other and to express our love in very tangible ways that the honoree would never forget. Mary Ellen's 50th was just such an occasion. In fact, it was the ultimate extravaganza. That morning, if you can picture, as she pulls off Chadwick, she was greeted with a succession of signs all the way down Shawnee Mission Parkway, through the plaza, and turning left up Oak, and I believe that Dee Dee planted many of these signs. They sported Mary Atkins' dour face with a little party hat, and the signs declared, Mary Ellen Young is 50. She arrived at the West door to find every single employee, every department wearing big stickers, I love Mary Ellen. The office had been completely transformed by Penny Selley's masterfully painted skyline of New York City. And that was, of course, the destination for her trip with Susan Hild to New York. And we tucked apples into every possible nook and cranny we could find in the office. And the birthday lunch in the closed Roselle Court was the culmination of the glorious day for our beloved friend. 30 years ago, it was proclaimed all along Shawnee Mission Parkway and through the plaza, and the message remains just the same. We love Mary Ellen. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. Mary Ellen would have been very pleased to see all of you here. This gathering is what she wanted, and this very room is where we were married on a hot July day 59 years ago. Being the English major, English teacher, the editor she was, she wrote her own obituary after a close friend, a playwright, typed it. She, with her red ink pen, proofread and corrected it. Now, one thing she would not have been wild about was me standing here talking. With that in mind, I will be uncharacteristically brief. Mary Ellen had a very active and interesting life. She made good friends attending Paseo High School, Drake University, teaching at Southwest High, working at the Nelson Atkins Museum, and serving on the UMKC Cock-a-Fair Chair Advisory Committee for Adult Education. And of course, the good, fun, and silly friends she made beyond these places were a great joy to her. She loved books, art, music, watching old movies. She was very proud of David and Kelly and Megan and Michael. For me, she was love at first sight and will forever be the love of my life. I know we will all miss her intelligence, her wit, her love, and I know she would want me to thank all of you for being a part of her life. Thank you.
Okay. For those who don't know me, I'm Megan. I am Mary Ellen's granddaughter. And for my reflection today, I wanted to read a poem from a very talented author, Maya Angelou. Phenomenal Woman. Pretty women wonder where my secret lies. I'm not cute or built to suit a fashion model size. But when I start to tell them, they think I'm telling lies. I say, it's in the reach of my arms, the span of my hips, the stride of my step, and the curl of my lips. I am a woman phenomenally. Phenomenal woman, that's me. I walk into a room just as cool as you please, and to a man, the fellows stand or fall down on their knees. They swarm around me, a hive of honeybees. I say, it's the fire in my eye, the flash of my teeth, the swing of my waist, and the joy in my feet. I am a woman phenomenally. Phenomenal woman, that's me. Men themselves have wondered what they see in me. They try so much, but they cannot touch my inner mystery. When I try to show them, they say they still can't see. I say, it's in the arch of my back, the sun of my smile, the ride of my breast, the grace of my style. I am a woman, phenomenally, phenomenal woman, that's me. Now you understand why my head is not bowed. I don't shout or jump about or have to talk real loud. When you see me passing, it ought to make you proud. I say, it's in the click of my heel, the bend of my hair, the palm of my hand, the need of my care. Because I am a woman phenomenally. Phenomenal woman, that's me. Thank you.
And I'm grandson, I'm Michael. So I'm going to talk a little about what Carol mentioned, Jane Austen's book, Pride and Prejudice. This little copy is my Grand Mary's Pride and Prejudice, which she read numerous times, and I think she would have loved if I had read it. And although I haven't, I'm going to read a few quotes that I think are fitting from the book. It reads, I declare, after all, there is no enjoyment like reading. How much sooner one tires of anything than of a book. When I have a house of my own, I shall be miserable if I have not an excellent library. And if you've seen her house, she has many books. I must learn to be content with being happier than I deserve. Vanity and pride are different things. Though the words are often used synonymously, a person may be proud without being vain. Pride relates more to our opinion of ourselves. Vanity to what we would have others think of us. And finally, she asked that we would say the Lord's Prayer, so if you would either join me or bow your head as we say, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
So there are only a few of us up here that are listed in the program. I'm Harriet. And fortunately for you, not everybody could make it today, because if there were all of us here, this could go on a very long time. And that would mean that we would keep delaying the Prosecco and the Andres treats that are the real focus of why we're here today. We'll begin with Mary Ellen's own words. This was written for a memory book that we put together about 5 years ago. There have been 13 poker-playing slut puppies. Each suit has 13 cards, but in our suit, each of us is a queen of hearts. Our kennel is a single organism of loving, spunky, supportive, independent, strong, women who love and laugh and see each other through good and bad times. We are a breed apart, unrecognized by the American Kennel Club. So not to overquote, but it is a truth universally acknowledged that Mary Ellen was a serious bookworm. When she joined the Slut Puppies kennel about 20 years ago, she immediately assumed the name Virginia Woolf. Her vast personal library contained works by and about such esoteric authors as Proust and Waugh, Vita Sackville-West, all 6 Mitford sisters, and of course, Virginia Woolf. Her wonderful sense of humor was reflected in the likes of E.F. Benson's stories of Map and Lucia, and many, many, many works by Edward Gorey. When she and fellow bibliophiles gathered to discuss the literary greats, Jim Grebe admits that, like the original Bloomsbury group, they quickly disintegrated into literary gossip. Mary Ellen faithfully read all the issues of the New Yorker magazine. She daily absorbed the New York Times, loved best the Sunday obituaries, but she also read the Kansas City Star because she thought it was her civic responsibility. We counted on her prodigious memory of not only classic authors, but actors, plays, movies, and PBS programming. She not only read great works, she did great work. Her business cards read, Mary Ellen Young, DBA, word worker. She was our go-to girl for diction, elocution, pronunciation, articulation, punctuation, enunciation, and thank goodness for all of us, but especially for her probably dyslexic husband, Gene, spelling. It is a truth universally acknowledged that wherever and whenever she traveled, her faithful companion was her small, well-worn, oft-quoted copy of Pride and Prejudice.
Hi, I'm Elaine. Mary Ellen was a card player, a pastime she pursued with wit and passion. But card playing is far more than just a winning hand. It's the connection among the players and the opportunity to observe and interact with friends as they succeed or fail to win a hand. Some consider playing cards a frivolous activity or even the devil's workshop, especially the wicked game of poker. And Mary Ellen was all in. Several here today enjoyed afternoons in the young, sunny dining nook playing bridge and hoping to win a rubber, including Karen Carnes, Nancy Parks, Harriet Lawrence, and sometimes Chris Miller. The brave Mary Ellen took the leap from genteel bridge to down and dirty poker when she joined a group of women who played poker and had the unusual moniker of the Slut Puppies. She learned all the silly games, drank more than a few martinis, and was particularly astute in her understanding of high-low poker. She supplied advice, wit, and camaraderie. She shuffled the cards for almost every hand, but she never played. Now, it is a rare woman who can sit through week after week of puppy poker and keep herself smiling, much less become an essential part of every game and make us all laugh. When COVID ended in-person games, we took to the internet, meeting every week for Puppy Zoom. Mary Ellen was a regular participant. This year, she personally orchestrated one of our best ever Slut Puppy Christmas parties, joining us via Zoom.
I'm Diane, and speaking of that Christmas party, she asked each of us to relate something over Zoom. It was very nice for most of them. I think she had Harriet, the best place she'd lived, Joan, her favorite piece of art, Julie, one of her favorite stories, and then she asked me to do something from Paper Moon and the movie Paper Moon. So I felt like, well, there's some sort of a con man person here somewhere that she's thinking of me, but she never explained, and I don't know. Carol and I met Ms. Wolf at the Hutton Lawrence Lake House in the early 2000s for some wonderful holiday event. The three of us immediately hit it off, and I remember sitting outside at the picnic table talking like old friends. We started talking about depression and the difficulty of finding a good psychiatrist. Mary Ellen told us about Dr. Cedar, and that turned out to be a lifesaver. Imagine that, the first time we met. Mary Ellen was not a football fan, but was fascinated with our fanaticism for the Chiefs. She asked if she could come over and watch a game with us to get a better understanding of the sport and our passion for it. We're not sure she left with a greater grasp of the game, but we sure had a good time. Of course, ever into the classics, her sport was tennis. She followed the rankings, watched all the major tournaments, had strong opinions about all the players, Roger Federer, her all-time favorite, but did wish that they still had to wear tennis whites.
Hi, I'm Julie. Well, Mary Ellen was a classy dresser, although her idea of ordering from a catalog was a Peruvian connection, or MoMA. Like the rest of the pups, she enjoyed donning a costume and performing from time to time, and was mentioned earlier that she had portrayed Mary Atkins in the Atkins Auditorium at the Nelson Atkins Museum of Art, interviewed by the museum director, Julian Zugazagoitia, and he began by welcoming her and asking, "May I call you Mary?" To which she replied, "You may not." On Mary Ellen's last Monday, when I dropped off flowers from all of us that late morning, she was on her chaise in the living room, freshly bathed and shampooed. Her hair was in a soft page boy. She was dressed in a pretty, bright turquoise top. She looked pretty, and she had a soft color in her cheeks, and I told her, "You look pretty," and asked if she'd put on a bit of makeup. She shook her head and gave me a look, and if she'd been wearing glasses, the look would have been over the top with raised eyebrows. She wasn't wearing makeup, but she was very pretty that day. She looked really lovely. So we'll end our remembrances of the pups with a quote, or Mary Ellen's own words, the way we began, with an email that she sent us all, and to Karen and Nancy, on January 26th. She sent it, and it was called "Picture Us." That's the caption of the email. "Picture us all seated around the linoleum table, playing cards in our hands, hair drying in pin curls, highball glasses near at hand. And I am telling the group that my palliative care caseworker has told of symptoms from my radiation treatment that result in my being a mild dingbat." I choose to emphasize the word mild. "So when you see me being a little senile, just say to yourself, 'Isn't she darling?' I remember when she was sharp as a pickle, but she seems less threatening now, and I like her even more. With love to my besties, Virginia Woolf."
In closing, I'd like to share one more piece of poetry, although it's very hard to top Maya Angelou and Megan. I looked at so many pieces. Many of them were Mary Ellen's favorite poets, and kind friends both in Ithaca and Kansas City kept saying, "Well, what about Mary Oliver, the poet laureate of the wild, of the great blue heron and the coach whip, who I adore?" But I thought, well, frankly, I don't associate Mary Ellen with an ode to a pine marten's whisker. But I would love that for future reference. Yes, Penny, remember that. But I do associate Mary Ellen with this: the transformative power of art, of literature and visual art, to transport you, to take you to the unknown, and to show us all a deeper mystery. This poem is by Billy Collins, and it's called "The Brooklyn Museum of Art." I will now step over the soft velvet rope and walk directly into this massive Hudson River painting and pick my way along the Palisades with this stick I snapped off a dead tree. I will skirt the smoky nestled towns and seek the path that leads always outward until I become lost without a hope of ever finding the way back to the museum. I will stand on the bluffs in 19th century clothes, a dwarf among rock, hills, and flowing water, and I'll fish from the banks in a straw hat which will feel like a brushstroke on my head. And I will hide in the green covers of forests, so no appreciator of Frederick Edwin Church, leaning over the soft velvet rope, will spot my tiny figure moving in the stillness and cry out, pointing for the others to see, and be thought mad and led away to a cell where there is no vaulting landscape to explore, none of this bird song that halts me in my tracks, and no wide curving of this river that draws my steps toward the misty vanishing point. Thank you all for being here, and I hope you will join us at a reception immediately following this service. Thank you.